Do you have questions about your health? Do you need to find out what's keeping you from feeling your absolute best? If so, your intuition has guided you to the right place. I am Dr. Charlize, and welcome to the Art of Healing podcast community. In this podcast, we explore all topics in health and wellness, from Reiki to functional medicine, energy medicine, chakras, and meditation. Join me every week for fresh new episodes that highlight healers, various healing modalities, and use this as your opportunity to find what healing works best for you. If you want to learn more about me, simply Google at Dr. Charlize. Enjoy. Hello, this is Charlize, and thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode of the Art of Healing podcast. I am welcoming a guest. I'd like to introduce Ivy Tran. Ivy Tran is a sound healer who works along her fiance, Dr. Benjamin Morrell, in the integrative psychiatry clinic called Lit Clinic. He was a guest a few weeks ago and had such a warm reception and had so much engagement and so many questions about his unique style of psychiatric care that is coupled with Ivy's energy healing and sound healing. So I thought it would be great to complete this circle to have Ivy on as a guest and let her share with us some of what she does as part of their psychiatric and integrative care in their clinic. She's a sound healer. Ivy grew up in both Oklahoma and Nevada. And aside from her sound healing practice, she's also running small women's groups that are centered around community and healing. So I've asked her to come on, share some of what she does, how it can enhance what you're doing every day. Thank you so much and enjoy. All right. Well, hello, Ivy. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. How are you doing?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show, Dr. Davis. I'm doing well. I had my extensive morning routine today, got in the sauna, and had all my juices and
Nice,
beverages,
nice. Well,
and now I'm
and thank you
here.
so much for joining us. So, I thought it would be nice if we could maybe start with how you came to be a healer, in particular sound healer, and then I definitely want to share with the community your
Mm,
work in the
mm.
clinic because what got my attention is while I was working with your fiance, I noticed your offerings were right alongside. And in the Art of Healing podcast community, we love energy medicine. We love sound healing. We love the hardcore stuff, but this is actually an important part of what we discuss every week. So if you don't mind, tell me how you evolved into what you're doing now.
Mm. Yeah, that's always an interesting story, the journey of becoming a healer. So I I believe that all people who find themselves in this path have had to overcome some sort of great challenge in their life, because that is really what allows them to understand the pain that so many, all of us humans, go through on a day in, day out basis. So I was born in Oklahoma City and a very turbulent childhood growing up. I'm an only child. And so some people have the assumption that I was very spoiled, and my parents did love me so much, but they had a lot of things to work through, and so I was just kind of like riding that wave with them. Moved around a lot, and I was very introspective as a child, very quiet, um, like to observe things because I was in a chaotic environment. It kind of forced me to become this way. And I remember as a child, in one of the traumatic experiences that I was going through, I remember thinking, if I just turn off my feelings, my emotions, then I won't feel them. And I was probably in about second or third grade, and maybe a little bit older than that, actually. But so that kind of started a whole chapter of my life in my youth when I was numb to everything. And then as I got older, um, more things unfolded for me where I just realized that I am closed off to life. I am not allowing myself to feel anything, and I'm afraid. And all of these things that have worked their way into my life has really created everything that I have now, which is not the life that I desire at all. I was someone who just floated around in life. It was so hard for me to have a vision of the future because I was always so stuck in the moment and survival mode. And so when I was 26, Benjamin and I started dating, and he really helped unravel and unfold a lot of. And well, let me go back. So in 2020, whenever everybody was off work for those 2 weeks, I had a lot of time to spend at home and a lot of time to journal and reflect and think about, well, what is going to happen in the future, and what do I want that to look like? So that was really the start of my spiritual awakening in 2020. It was a very slow process. I began with journaling, meditating, just deep inner reflection. And from 2020 to 2021, Benjamin and I started a relationship, and it just really became clear to me that I was not in the career field that I wanted to be in. It did not feel fulfilling to me whatsoever. I was a cosmetologist. I did nails, and I was great at it, really good. I could get you in and get you out real fast, and I could do a good job. But it was so transactional to me and so service level. And I'd had a couple of jobs up until then. I was a bank teller, and I was working at a liquor distribution company. So just very surface level things, nothing to do with the inner workings of the mind or the soul or anything like that. But I could feel it calling to me, because every day that I would get up and go to work, it was just a terrible feeling. And to anybody else, it's just a normal job. Like, I have a great life. I have an apartment where I want to live. I'm making decent money. I'm working out. But inside, I felt like I was deteriorating on the inside, my soul. And I was just asking God at this point, please just make a change in my life. I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. And in 2021, a week after I wrote that in my journal, we got into a car accident. And I broke my left wrist. I'm left-handed, and hurt my right shoulder to the point where I basically was, I couldn't use my upper body, right? So, which is what makes money, which is how I do my job. And so, and in that moment, I remember just looking up to the sky and laughing, because it was just so ironic. And I manifested this because now I get to have time away from that job and step back and figure out what it is that I actually want to do and how I want to step into this world. So that was kind of the big shift in my life, was 2020 COVID and 2021 the car accident. And
No, this is
I feel like
perfect.
I'm
This is
talking so
perfect.
much. Do you
I
have
did
any
have
questions?
one kind of question, because what you're sharing is very important. That's why I'm not interrupting you. It's very important because your feelings of disconnection, that's where a lot of people are. That feeling of and I was trying to think, what do we call that? You know, you were getting up and going, you were doing all the things, but inside kind of falling apart. Um, when before leading up to the accident, did you still have
Mm-hmm.
that emotional disconnect? Was that defense mechanism of
Mm-hmm.
having turned down the emotions, was it still there, or had you already started to work through that leading up to the accident? Okay.
I had done some inner work up until then. I and so in 2020, one of the realizations that I had was that I was very lonely and I had never been in a loving partnership before. And in fact, I had never really experienced love outside of my trauma. And so I was working really hard on that, working really hard on opening myself up more to the experience and being more vulnerable because I was really good at shutting off my emotions, really good at closing down. Anytime I would have anxiety
Close down.
about
Okay.
anything, I would just
Can we
cut it off.
return to the
And
period of time
so,
after the
yeah.
accident? So you have essentially handicap. I can't think of a better term, with a fractured wrist. You said you fractured your shoulder too, or it was injured. You
Mhm.
oh,
It was pretty injured. I
okay.
couldn't use it for a few months, but
It's
it wasn't
broken.
broken.
Okay. So then,
I think it was
yeah,
a
so if you
minor
don't mind,
fracture.
share with us, because that has to have been, I cannot imagine. Your soul journey lesson had to come in a painful way, huh? Oh my goodness.
Mm, yes, it did. It did. But I am so grateful I wouldn't take any of it back. I think everything happened exactly perfectly the way that it was supposed to. Um, so we get into a car wreck, and for the next few months, I was out of work, so I had a lot of time to think about and reflect. And part of my human experience at this point is I just need to experience life and figure out what it is that I love because I haven't done much. As a child, I was very sheltered. My parents worked a lot, and so there wasn't time for them to take me to piano lessons or soccer practice or really do anything extracurricular. I went to school and I went home, and when I turned 12 years old, I had to help my mom at the nail
Mm,
salon. And so that was all of my summers after school. So I felt very, very sheltered and restricted, and like
mm,
I didn't know what I even liked to begin with. So I knew that I liked to cook. My dad is a great chef, and I learned a lot of my um, ways of cooking, I guess, from my family. And so, since I was not working, I figured I had to start a business. So, the first thing that came was to me that seemed quick and I could get into immediately was meal prep. So, I put out a flyer that I was doing meal preps. If anybody wanted to pre order, they could, and then they could pick up a certain day of the week. So I did that for a couple of weeks, and then I got real bored of it. I didn't, I just didn't find anything interesting about meal prep meals. So then I started to pivot into more specialty foods, and this led me to another 2 year long journey of this specific business, and it was Oni OKC. It was a Japanese onigiri concept, and onigiris they're portable little Japanese rice balls. They're triangle and they have filling in them, and they're so delicious. And so I had put out a post that I was going to be doing this specialty item for this week only, and my Instagram account just absolutely blew up. And so then I jumped on that and started a whole business for that. It was really fun. We got a food truck. We were about to, get on the road with that thing. But then I started having this feeling again in my chest where it just wasn't my calling anymore. And I felt a lot of guilt about that because I felt like I was letting so many people down. Benjamin was all in on it with me and he was so proud, and but I just had the feeling again where this
Mhm.
is all transactional. Once again, it's I love cooking, but once you get to that level of
Mhm.
producing, everything just becomes a number. And at this point, I was running it by myself. So I was doing the dishes all by myself. I was doing the deliveries, the packaging, the cooking, everything, the marketing. It was all me. And I got so burned out on it. And again, did not feel fulfilling to me anymore. So there was about a 6 month to a year break there where I just took time off of everything. And at one of my pop-ups, I did a regular pop-ups at restaurants or bars, and I would do my onigiri concept there for people that order. I was talking to the one of the cooks in the back, and we just got into this real deep conversation about life and the universe. And it was one of my last pop-ups, and I just remember being like, actually, this is what I want to do. I want to do something that's so meaningful and just speak about what it is that means the most to me and means the most to other people and share that magic. And right now it's just not in the food industry. So after that, I took the year 6 months to a year break, and then I saw someone doing sound healing with the crystal bowls, and I just thought I would really like to do that. Just got a spark in my body of just like that looks like it would be so amazing. So I got the sound bowls and I started playing with them, started doing them for friends, and have added a few instruments here and there. And
So, your
yeah, this is where I
story,
am
what I
now.
take from that that's so important is it's a great reminder of what happens when we listen to our body and we listen to ourselves and when we don't. Because it sounded like you were on a hot
Mm-hmm.
path. Like it was kind of like, was it like when you were with the business, it was like steamrolling ahead. And then you got the feeling of like, whoa, this isn't right. So it sounds like your
Yes.
intuition saved you from something that could
Yeah.
have, because I mean, can you imagine if you had stayed on that track and then look at all that energy that was going to take is, production and food.
Mm-mm.
And I mean, can you imagine how you would have felt if you'd stayed
Mm-hmm.
on that track?
Right. I actually had a conversation with my friend who is also in the restaurant business, and she had said something that was so pivotal for me. She said, "I don't know if this is the path for me." And and in that moment, it was like a shock waves moved through my body of like, "Oh, I'm allowed to feel this. I'm allowed to feel like this might not be the right path for me." And so for me, I started to play the tape forward of what it would look like. And if that lifestyle is in alignment with how I want to live, and I don't want to work on the weekends, I don't want to work on the holidays. I want to be in bed by 9 p.m. with my family. And there were things that I loved to do that I didn't want to do anymore, like cook. I didn't want to make dinner anymore because I was cooking all day. And so you really have to look at these little small details of how it changes your life, because if you miss out on those cues, you're going to wake up one day miserable from a life that you created without stepping back and taking inventory of, is this in alignment with me, or am I doing this for everyone else because I want to? And there is so much beauty in, and I when I look at the people in our community, the ones that are, they have the restaurants, they have the all the things, and they're serving the community. I think it's so beautiful. But you have to love it. It has to be something that you are extremely called to and desire. Otherwise, it's just going to suck
So
your soul
that takes me
out
to
of
my
your
next
body.
question. So now on the path of being a sound healer, and what it caught my attention was this was a service offered in your clinic, in the clinic that you and Dr. Morell have. Can you tell me, how does sound healing work with integrative psychiatry? And maybe just describe for us what that looks like.
Right. So, integrative psychiatry is really using unconventional methods and conventional methods, holistic methodologies to kind of heal the human mind, body, and soul. And so, using different techniques like Dr. Morell will use sauna and ice plunge for his patients sometimes instead of just doing talk therapy. And sound healing is another service that we provide for that reason, in that sometimes talk therapy is not going to really get to that energetic, subtle level that some people need. Some people need to lay down and allow their nervous system to relax and enter that rest and digest state, and just be bathed in sound, just so they can hear their own inner voice and work through those things on the inside. And if anything, it's just a deeply relaxing experience, which I think in this modern society in America, there you wake up with a blaring alarm. The news is always shouting at you. We're looking at different screens multiple times a day. There's always a to-do list. And then we wonder why we become chronically ill and tired and sick when we should be healthy as a young person. So that's how sometimes Dr. Morell will, kind of assess a patient and think, you could use some sound healing. And then,
That's
so we'll set up an appointment for his patients.
And that, I think what intrigued me was, on one hand, I would tend to think of sound healing as a luxury healing, but in the services you offer, this is the standard of care. So getting into some energy healing beyond just the talking. Oh, that's wonderful. So is there,
Mm-hmm.
are
Yeah.
patients able to
Mm-hmm.
work just with you as far as sound healing, or do they also have to do the psychiatric care in your clinic?
They can do both. So I have patients that are just independent from the clinic, and they book directly through my link, or they know me personally and they shoot me a text. And then there's also, I do take Ben's patients as well. So I I have a pretty wide scope when it comes to that.
For certain individuals or certain people suffering from certain ailments that gravitate towards the sound healing, or things that you might see more of, like more depression or more PTSD or more trauma? Do you see a pattern like that?
I would say that I would say depression, because it is just, there's something about the vibration of the sound healing when you're in that state. It feels very safe, and it allows the person to just let their conscious mind melt away and being bathed in the vibrations and the sounds. Um,
Mm.
but I would say for an anxious mind as well, especially if it's running very quickly, being in the sound healing space can also be extremely beneficial. But truly, it can be for anybody. And you don't have to have any kind of psychiatric, ailment to experience a sound bath. It could just be that you want to slow down and you want to just relax and kind of meditate for an hour, 30 minutes.
So during the sound healing, you can let the conscious mind melt away. The sound
Mm-hmm.
helps with that. And then the sound itself, if I understand it, helps the actual physical body, or actually helps the
Mm-hmm.
tissues and all of that. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So that leads me to my next question, because the sound healing, again, is what caught my attention. But I understand that you have other healing modalities and services you're offering. And I think you have some events that you have coming up. Do you mind sharing with us?
Yeah, of course. So, in these past couple of weeks since spring has sprung, we have been doing a couple of sound healings in the park, and these are free to attend. All you have to do is bring a yoga mat, but we'll pick any, uh, typically the third Saturday of the month if I'm available. We'll go do it in the park and set up, and everyone will come, and I'll do an hour sound bath. So that's really fun for people who maybe don't want to commit to a one-on-one session. They want to go with their friends maybe and make a fun little Saturday trip out of it. And the other thing that I offer is it is called Wild Woman Reset. So we have a small group of women come over for a 3 to 4 hour session, and we'll do sauna and cold plunge, and we'll do juicing and guided meditation, embodiment, and we'll finish the session with what is that word called? It's like when you wrap everything up with all the women and then you share a brunch. So we'll do that, and then it's such a fun experience, and all the women that come, they leave feeling refreshed and connected, and it's really a nice way to build community. And so we offer that as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. I have a couple additional questions. So, how can the listeners find out more about you, how to connect to you, and particularly if they're local, if they could be a part of your programs? Do you mind sharing with us the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, sure. So for now, I'm on Instagram at Moody Ives, MOODYIVES. And my booking link is in the link in the bio. So you just tap that and then scroll down to the booking link. And I'm also available by text message. I believe my text number is on there as well. And then we also have a podcast that I do with my soul sister called the Humanly Us podcast as well. And we come out with a few episodes every now and then, just sharing all of our goodies from all the spiritual things that we do. But yeah, those are the two places that you can find me. And what was the last question? Was that the last question?
No, I had not asked the last question yet. So if we can circle back to when we very first started, you had shared with us that you had just finished up your morning routine. If you don't mind, I thought that might be a nice way to close. For a lot of us, it's inspiring to hear someone who's really tuned in and really, very much in alignment with where they need to be, what their morning routine is. Do you mind sharing what your morning routine is?
Yeah, absolutely. So my morning routine varies from day to day, but what I try to keep at the forefront of all of my routines is I'll get up, brush my teeth, scrape my tongue. That's very important to me. It's also an Ayurvedic practice where they believe that when your body is sleeping, it is basically cleaning up all the toxins in your body, and that ends up on your tongue. And then I will go into my sound room where all of my instruments are, and I will do a sound healing for myself. And I'll usually sing, and we have a red light that I'll put on me just like while I'm sitting there meditating and singing. And I have and then I'll also do just like some deep movement and stretching just to wake the body up. And then I'll also like do hops to just generate all the energy to get the lymphatic system moving. Mm-hmm. And I have a couple of drinks that I've been doing. So in the morning, I will heat up a kettle of water and I will put in a teaspoon of fennel seeds, coriander seeds, and cumin seeds, all into a little stainless steel tea thing to where you put it in the water and it lets the tea simmer. And I've been doing that pretty regularly every single morning. It's called CCF in Ayurveda. And that helps it just helps like clear out and your blood and reduce inflammation. And it's just a really great tea to start your day with. And I'll journal in the morning, get some thoughts off of my mind. And that's my morning routine.
Thank you.
Today I saunaed. Today I saunaed because I just wanted to get all the blood moving and just get a little sweat in before this session.
So, and thank you so much for sharing. I think it's the more that I have learned about myself, learned with others, that those little things like that morning routine, sharing that can be really powerful and very inspirational. Because depending where we are, for some of us, our morning routine may be that alarm blaring and then rush off. And so it's nice to hear that with a little intention, you feel better. So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah,
Ivy,
absolutely.
I really appreciate your time on the show today. Your time's valuable. So thank you so much for taking time out. Listeners, if you'll check your show notes, I'll make sure that you know how to get in touch with Ivy, how to learn more about her programs. Any last words you'd like to share with us?
Just thank you for having me on the show and allowing me to share my story. It's been a wonderful time and I can't wait to do it again someday.
Thank you so much, Ivy. And listeners, make sure to check your show notes to learn how to connect with Ivy. I'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining during this episode of the Art of Healing podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review. Also, you can check your show notes to find out how to get a copy of this and future episodes emailed directly to your inbox, available to listen to anytime. Finally, if you have questions or wish to connect to me, check your show notes to find out how we can get connected and find out how I can be of service to you.